Hey, welcome to Lessons from the Boot. I'm your host, Ms. Brittany, and every week I dive deep into the personal growth and development that living here in South Italy teaches me, in the hope that you can gain some inspiration from it wherever you may be in the world. Everything in life has an expiry date. And I've been thinking a lot about this recently because when we think about expiry dates or sell-by dates, we often liken them to perishable items like food and drink. But what we don't often associate with them are the experiences that we have in life. Now, I've been thinking a lot about this because I've had quite a few people messaging me over on my Instagram account. My handle is @MsBrittany if you want to follow along as well. And they've been asking me lots of questions about Salerno. Now, Salerno was my home in the south of Italy for 4 years until I moved to Palermo in late 2022. And so I've got a lot of love and respect for Salerno as a city. It is a fantastic place. But essentially, for me, it had gone past its sell-by date. And I felt that I had had all of the experiences that I could have in that city over the course of those 4 years. And I couldn't see how I could grow or develop even more as a person if I continued to live there. Now, it wasn't an easy decision to make, don't get me wrong. I set my life up there. It was the first Italian city that I moved to. And I had all my bureaucracy in place, which is an absolute godsend if you live here in Italy. So it wasn't a decision that I took lightly, but it was a decision that I knew I needed to take because essentially, if I continued to live in Salerno, I think I would slowly have become resentful of the city and I wouldn't have left with such beautiful memories of it if I had continued to stay there. And it really got me thinking because how many times do we stay in situations in our lives that have long gone past their sell-by date? Like we no longer have the same passion about them. We no longer feel the same joy. We no longer have the same associations that we once did to a certain person, place or thing. Yet, we don't often do anything about it. We don't often make the changes that are necessary to either completely revamp our lives or make things better. And there are lots of reasons, I think, as to why we put up with things that have gone past their sell-by date for way too long. A lot of it boils down to the fear of change. Change is something that scares so many people, myself included. Yet I have learned to view change as a necessity. It's something that you have to experience. If you want growth and a fulfilled life, you have to be prepared to make changes. Because there is that really famous expression, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always have what you've always got. In other words, your life is just going to continuously look the same unless you are prepared to make changes and do things differently from time to time. And it's a really interesting concept because we are at the beginning of a brand new year and people often intrinsically decide to make changes at this time of year because they get caught up in the energy and in making New Year's resolutions. But how many people really follow through on them? Because it's very easy to say, well, this year I want to do X, Y, and Z. But how easy is it to take the steps to actually make that a reality? And that's where the kind of hidden blocks and limiting behaviors kick in. Because when you aren't ready to make a change in your life, you will look for any excuse to procrastinate. You will look for any reason to keep your life exactly as it is. Comfort zones are very, very appealing. Honestly, Salerno for me was my comfort zone. I knew my way around. I had friends. I had work. I had an apartment. Salerno for me was very, very much my comfort zone. I knew where to go for my grocery shopping. I just knew the city. And so comfort zones can feel very secure. There is a reason why they are called comfort zones. And they can feel very magnetic. You think that it's good to feel this way and you don't necessarily want to feel uncomfortable again. Yet moving to Palermo, although it was difficult at the beginning to make the transition because life in Palermo is wild compared to life in Salerno, it has definitely been one of the best decisions I've made because the amount of growth that I have had living here since September of 2022 is incredible. I don't think I'm the same woman that I was when I lived back in Salerno. I've grown so much in a fairly short space of time. And a lot of that is because I'm in a new environment, new people, new situations, a new mindset a lot of the time. And it's helped to push me to grow and to do new things. Like everything about my life has up-leveled since I made that change and moved from Salerno to Palermo. And I really believe it's because I was stale, much like cheese goes past its sell-by date and becomes moldy and disgusting. I was slowly becoming moldy, staying in Salerno, because my life was exactly the same every single day. And there wasn't anything that excited me about that city anymore in terms of living there. Now, I tell you Salerno is an incredible city because it really is. And I don't record this podcast episode in any way to slate it, because if you watch any of my content on my YouTube channel, you will know how I'm always referencing Salerno here, there and everywhere, because for me, it's a beautifully hidden gem along the Amalfi Coast. Although, dare I say it, I think more and more people are discovering it now. So I'm happy for Salerno. But in a way, it's kind of like that's part of its magic, for the fact that it's a bit of a hidden gem. But nevertheless, it's a great place to stay if you plan to visit the Amalfi or to travel around that part of Italy. And so for this reason, it wasn't because there was anything wrong with the city. It was just because I knew within myself that it was time to make that change. And I've been reflecting a lot lately, because I actually think my life operates to 6-year cycles. And I want to do some research into this, because I'm really curious if this is even a concept or even a thing, but I have noticed that every 6 years I make a very big, significant change in my life. At the end of my first 6 years of working in the police, I left to start my business. That was a huge, significant change. Although I left my business at 4 years to move to Italy, I do wonder if I would have stuck it out a bit longer had there not been the pressure of Brexit looming, because essentially it was Brexit that made me move a lot quicker in that period. I'm now 6 years of being in Italy this year, and already I can see that I want to make some changes to the way my life is here. And so I do wonder if there is something in that magic 6-year number. But that aside, you know within yourself when you're in situations that no longer serve you, and when you are doing things that are no longer right for you. And it is about recognizing that you are choosing to stay in that situation. Because sometimes we try to distract ourselves. We reach for a glass of wine, or we smoke a few cigarettes, or we just do things that are not going to help us in the long run in order to try and distract us in the kind of immediate moment. But it's not helping. Essentially, the reason you don't feel happy is because what you are experiencing, whatever it may be, is no longer right for you. Like, you can outgrow things can go off and you get a new thing, or you have a new experience. Like, this can happen. And I think it's really interesting to remember this for this year, because if you find yourself in a moment where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, I want to do things differently, or I no longer enjoy this as much as I used to, then it's probably very much one of these moments that is happening to you. And I think there's nothing wrong with it. Change can be a really beautiful blessing if you view it and approach it in the right way. It's not this big, scary monster that everybody refers to it as. Yes, there is a lot of fear connected to change, because essentially often you are stepping into the unknown, and our bodies naturally want to, and mind especially, naturally wants to protect us. It's like that fight or flight mode. And so, of course, anything that is unknown presents a potential risk. So naturally, we want to subconsciously protect ourselves. And that can mean sometimes we don't make the change because we consider it to be too risky, or we procrastinate. But change undoubtedly is what makes us human. We have the ability to change ourselves in any given moment of our life, change our routine, change our behavior, change our life, change our mindset. Change is key. Change is key to living an enriched, fulfilled life. And I think, recognizing those moments in life which no longer light you up, and taking the action and steps to do something different can really, really enhance your life. I can say for myself it has done, especially with that move from Salerno to Palermo, 100%. It definitely changed my mindset, my outlook, and even like the content and the way that I produce my content now for my YouTube channel and Instagram and all of the ideas that I've now got, I didn't have when I lived in Salerno. And it's not to say they wouldn't have come later on, but I do think when you're in a new environment, it does spark inspiration in ways that maybe you don't feel when you are in the same old space. So if there's one thing I want you to take from this episode, it is this. Really be honest with yourself and your life. What parts of your life no longer bring you joy in the same way that they once did? There's nothing wrong with that, but it is about recognizing that and then understanding what you can do about that, whether it involves a radical change, whether it involves taking a risk, whether it involves replacing something, whatever it may be. What can you do to make that change, to infuse that joy back into your life and into your experiences? I'll see you in the next episode.